together, this one and then others that will follow for you, so that you can get deeper and deeper knowledge. So each one will build on to the next one. Okay, so if you're new and you see me looking down there, I'm just checking whether there's been any problems or things coming up that I need to know about. And we shall begin now. So welcome to our special masterclass, which is Take Back the Power of Your Life to Yourself. And I think that sums up the real goal of personal development, of any self-improvement. It's all about getting power, bringing it back to you because you have given it away, as you'll see in a moment. And that is how you make your life. You can't make your life anew unless you have your natural power available, quite obviously. So this is what we're going to deal with in this first session. And what it means is that your whole life is created and restricted by one invisible faculty. Now, this is quite a dawning of knowledge for some people, and they think, what could that possibly be? Well, we call that invisible faculty the mind. Now, there is a very, very short word for the most powerful force, basically, in the universe. And my goodness, many people have looked into it to try to study it, to try to find out what it is and talk about it in many ways, but it is very, very difficult for them to understand. And the reason that people find it difficult to know how it works is because it is invisible. And to understand that it's invisible, it's obviously unknowable if it's invisible, simply because you can't see it, feel it, taste it, touch it, smell it, nothing. You can't in any way cause it to appear to you. You can get into your imagination, which is part of the mind, they say. You can listen to thoughts. You can write things up in your mind if you're clever. But if not, then of course it's impossible to do that. So what is the important thing is to realize that you have this invisible faculty. And even though people speak with great authority about it, it is really something that they don't understand at all. And the reason that they don't understand it is because there is a lot of disagreement about it. And so we want to get it very clear for you, because it is literally the faculty that creates your life. And so if you don't know what it is, your life is going to be all over the place. And you want to understand that. And so we're going to take for granted that the faculty that you use to create your life is this invisible operation we call the mind. It's usually done unconsciously, no doubt about that. But even though it's invisible, it must have at least some sort of existence, mustn't it? It must have something that we can hang on to. And what it means is this, that if we base our thoughts and discussions and understandings on the wise people of previous generations who have come to all sorts of conclusions through direct experience of the mind, then we'll be much ahead of the game, because the times we live in right now are actually, this modern time is where they believe that the brain is the mind, or the mind is the brain. Now they've just, whoever has decided upon that has just drawn that out of the ether. They don't know what the mind is, it's invisible. They know what the brain is, they can do lots of measurements and photographs and things of the brain. So they've linked those things together, and in mainstream beliefs, that's what you see. The trouble is there are always things that happen that make that conclusion rather shaky. And the important thing is that in the past, particularly around the Himalayan region, where you get Tibet, you get Nepal, you get India, you get Kashmir, all these kinds of places, China on the other side there, all these places had their own very advanced spiritual paths, traditional paths. And if you look into them deeply, you find that they suggest that the brain is actually a solidification of something called the mind. So the brain and the mind occupy the same space. They are intertwined. The brain is the expressive physical side of the mind. But what we can say is the jury is still out in the West, in the so-called advanced economies and advanced parts of civilization. And they say that it's the brain. They've come to that decision and conclusion rather quickly. I think they'll be thinking twice about that as time goes on. So, but this will not matter to us, because all we are interested in this program is practical results in our daily lives. That's what we want, that's what we need. And let's use some simple analogies to really grasp this extraordinary tool that you are using every split second of your life. Whether you are aware of it or not, it doesn't matter. If you're aware of it or not, it is running the ship. It is running the show. Call it what you like. So what is your mind? Well, first of all, it's a force or a power. Just like electricity, an invisible substance, but it has clearly force and power. It comes as lightning. You can see it like that. But generally, it's an invisible substance. And where does it come from? Where does this mind, force, power, and all the contents the mind has, where does it come from? It actually, the teachings of India in particular tell us this, that it buds off like a flower buds off a tree, a branch of a tree, a leaf buds off. It buds off the higher self. So that's what you have. You have initially your own self. If you're looking at a sort of hierarchy of what you are, at the top there is the self, or at the center there is the self, the higher self. Again, an invisible faculty to the senses. And this is identified as pure awareness and pure super consciousness, in fact. So looking at the self in that way is very helpful. So let's look at it this way simply. There is a super conscious intelligence that is throughout the universe, that is the operating system of the universe. Just like a computer has an operating system, so does the universe. There is something prior to or imbibed in, you can choose, this intelligence, in other words, that causes the universe to obey the laws that allow it to exist. The laws are very, very strict. Scientific laws are what they are, and that is what we are faced with. Now, the superconscious has its external reality, which is encompassing the whole universe and operating it. And it also has, with every individual human being, its internal reality, or perhaps every living being, its internal reality, which is the highest part of your mind. So you don't have to go anywhere to find it. It's within you, and this is crucially important. And it's where you experience your extrasensory perceptions, coincidences, synchronicity, higher powers of the mind, genius, unlimited creativity, the dream world, all these kinds of things that exist that are greater than your ordinary personal mind. So the superconscious intelligence steps down, so to speak, to form your personal mind. Just like you see big cables in the street where electricity runs along and there's a big transforming box on the top of the telegraph pole, and it steps down the electricity to make it usable in the house so it doesn't blow up, in other words. And this is what the superconscious is to your personal mind. It is the main power of the grid, let's say, and it steps down to you, to a little you. It does that through your chakra system. So here you are, a little droplet of the electricity of life, but you are always in touch with that electricity of life simply because you'd be dead if you weren't. So you have got that little tiny you, that sense of you, but you are always in touch with it. And this is important if you want to improve anything, because many people enter into a self-improvement path, and what they find is that it doesn't work for them And the reason it doesn't work is simply because they don't understand the superconscious and its aspects in the creation of their lives, which you will through this program. So what you do when you do personal development, and maybe you don't know this, is that you are attempting to access the superconscious. The personal mind, your personal mind, can do nothing except a little bit of external work in the physical world. But to cause the extraordinary benefits to come your way that you might want, you have to go to the main grid, if you like, because that's where everything is worked from. So you can't create something in your life without a higher intelligence coming in to do the legwork for you. A lot of people read about the law of attraction and things like that, and they imagine that it's their little tiny personal mind calling in and creating all the circumstances which will give them the results they want. Of course, that's a joke. It's not how it works at all. All you can do is access or connect with the superconscious at a even slightly higher level, and then it will respond. We'll go through this as we proceed. Now, if you can accept that there is this superconscious power of life, then your ability to create what you want will be greatly enhanced and the whole thing will speed up. That's very, very important indeed. So the other levels of the mind, subconscious and unconscious. Subconscious is memory, spread through the body, things are remembered throughout the whole body. And your unconscious is the collection of animal faculties that keep you going, walking, breathing, living, digesting, etc. We don't need to be concerned with those, although it should be noted the superconscious is in charge of those as well. And this is why healing can take place with people, because they have something wrong unconsciously with their organism. And by contacting the superconscious, which is the senior rider of the horse, it can help dramatically. So healing is part of it as well. Now, always keep in mind that the superconscious, the big superconscious, so to speak, is the creative force that is manifesting, directing, operating, call it what you will, the whole universe. It may not have created it. We don't know what created it. It is the operating intelligence. That's as far as we go, because it's all imagination after that, quite obviously. So what does it do? How does it do it? If you can see how it does it, which I'm going to show you, you can follow exactly the same method. First of all, it's a mind-based universe. First of all, there is the intention to create something. Some impulse arises. If you look into life itself, right back to the beginning of the single cells and the tiny little organisms that began, there is a pulse, an impulse. Boom, boom, boom. That is what gets your heartbeat doing the same thing. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? Now, that impulse on a tiny singular little minor, even single cell structure, that impulse is the basis of the material world. Something has a throb of some type, a pulse. You can hear that pulse sometimes when you meditate very deeply. You can feel it within yourself going. So that impulse comes up as the initial throb of intention, of desire in the superconscious to create something. We don't know why the universe wants to be created. All we know is that it is being created. So we'll run with that for now. We don't worry about the why and the wherefore. That's all philosophy, and we can, imagine that. That's all we can do with that one. So the impulse comes to create. Now you have that yourself every day. You have an impulse to do something. If you don't have an impulse to do something, it means you're depressed. There is an impulse to do something, even if it's only be conscious of the heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. So that impulse to do is what drives the universe and your personal life. And the more that you can tune in with that original throb or pulse, the easier it will be for you to create what you want, because you'll be aligning yourself with the universal throb. What was the Big Bang? A giant boom, a throb, a pulse, you see? The universe came out of that. So what happens is that there is an intention in the superconscious to create a form, and a plan or a blueprint of that form appears first of all, and then the material which is needed to create it, whether it's a star, a galaxy, a horse, or whatever, starts to collect around that image, if you like. Or it's not really just an image, you know, it's a whole three or four dimensional idea. And that coating of the blueprint, that solidification of the blueprint, is done by the highest intelligence, and then the form appears. And that's what the mind and the brain is. The mind, this superconscious, had an impulse to create a brain, and maybe a lot of humans and what have you, but certainly let's just take the brain, and it's solidified in some way, we don't know how it does it, into the brain. Okay, so the mind and the brain, yes, they're completely connected, but the brain can't exist without the mind. And this is what the yogis teach you. Get the mind in order. Now for you in your life, just as you imagine cooking a particular meal, you see in your mind's eye before you get the ingredients, you see what's necessary to lay out, you imagine having all the vegetables and the fish and the whatever laid out nicely, you think of what colorful vegetables would go into it, and do I need potatoes with cheese on top, or whatever it might be. And this is how you do it to make a food, and then you imagine it on the plate as you're serving it to those who are eating it. Oh, that'll look nice. Great. The superconscious does the same thing with the life forms, including you. You're a life form, as I am, as we all are. And what it sees in its blueprint is what it's going to create. So whatever it is, from a huge sun and a planet right down to an amoeba or some little tiny microcosmic thing, it is the creative power that is innate within it that causes that creation to appear. Now, you must use the same methodology as the universe does, simply because that is how the whole thing is done. That is literally how the whole thing is done. And you need to realize that the superconscious is supremely intelligent, and it is able to do anything at all. It can create the universe, so anything that sort of fits into this world, this 3 or how many dimensions, who knows, world, needs to be accessed and used. And you do the same. You have to reconnect with the superconscious to be able to use its power to manifest the life you really want. A lot of people don't realize this. This is the great secret. And it is learning to direct your mind in particular ways. The mind is the creative power in your life. And what is necessary is for you to actually be able to use the same methodology as the superconscious does. And you've heard of visualization, you've heard of affirmations, you've heard of imagination, you've heard of all sorts of things, fake it till you make it, self-image, all these sorts of things are useful tools, some of them very useful tools, to cause the superconscious to come to the party to create what you want. And this is what we're going to deal with as we proceed through exactly how to do all this. I'm going to give you the steps very, very clearly as we proceed here. And once you realize that what you want is entirely dependent on the superconscious and its powers, then and only then will things happen for you, and they will happen very easily. All of us are so far divorced from our connection to the superconscious. We're so far away from this electricity of life, this power of life, that it is very difficult in the beginning for people to wrap their head around what is actually going on in life. Now, I like to use the analogy of, when I say use more power, of a dimmer switch, of turning up a dimmer switch. You've probably heard me say this previously. And this is what you have to do. You turn up the dimmer switch so your life becomes stronger, the power becomes more usable. See, if you take yourself back to the throb of the universe before it began, in other words, what caused it to begin with the Big Bang, etc., and the heartbeat and everything, what is it? It's a pulse of power. Boom, boom, boom. So that is the secret. You need to work with the power. And in order for it to happen, fortunately it's not complex, in order for you to be able to access the power of life, you must have an aim or a goal, or the life force, this electricity of life, cannot pour through you. And if it doesn't pour through you, then nothing will happen. You can, whistle till the cows come home, nothing's going to happen. All you'll see is a replay of the old anchors of your upbringing over and over and over again. A monotonous loop through life. Now, that's not a great way to live, quite obviously. So what you have to do is take the reins of your life. This is the first step. Most people don't do this. They're in reaction, not action. In other words, they wait for things to happen and then they will react to those things. So this is what people do. They don't earn money. A lot of them would rather sit around in the sun, which is very, very nice. I like that too. But what happens is you have to take actions to make the money to pay the rent or the mortgage. Now, not a lot of people do that first of all. They don't sit there and think. There are, 10% of the society that does, but most people are just in reaction. I need money. Oh, I'll get a job. They don't think, wow, I'd like a really great job because I want to express myself in this way and da-da-da. No, it's reaction. So don't fall into that trap. That is a disastrous path, particularly with the times that are coming up with the robots and taking all the jobs and everything like that. And it's a great reason why you need to have an entrepreneurial or a creative attitude to your personal life, because that external throb, action, every action is a throb or a pulse. See how it goes? So that's you. That's what you want to do. You have got to consider yourself as the writer, director, and star of your own life. You want to be really, really clear that you are the one who's doing it. Most people have no idea of this. You should have heard the things that people say to me at the end of all the seminars I did with tens of thousands of people coming. People would say, oh, you've given me permission to have a great life. And I just presented the course, obviously. Or they said, oh, I didn't know I was allowed to live in the way that I wanted. And things like that, because of their upbringing. It's not their fault. It's just the way that the mind was molded in them personally. And it's vital that you realize right now that you are using less than 1% of your potential and your capabilities. Okay, 1%, that's all you're using. Remember Einstein said, or at least they quote him as saying, if you use another 1%, you'll be a genius. It's pretty good, isn't it? So take a thought now. Here I am, living this life. I've been conditioned to be who I am. I've been dealt a hand in life, which I'm playing. I don't realize there's a whole pack of cards I can take more from to expand my hand. I'm just playing the cards I've been given. And I'm only using 1% or less of my potentials and capabilities. Because there's no need to. If I can get by, float along, then I will. And that's what people do until, the train hits the wall. And then they have to react. And by then it's often too late for people to do things to survive well and so on. Life starts to deflate and collapse. And it can happen to anybody. You can have a huge amount of money in the bank. That can disappear, as it did many times over the last 8 years or so in the public world. Everything can disappear, everything can change. The only thing that won't change is the strength of mind that you have. And if you have the strength of mind, then you have the ultimate tool to help you. And if you then learn how to use it to create what you want, you have the golden key. So this is why it's so important to understand it. The problem for us all is that the mind and consciousness are not included in the educational system. And it's extremely difficult to find intelligent teachings about them because, unfortunately, as I said earlier, they think the mind is the brain. They don't realize there is this superconscious, there is this transpersonal realm in life above the personal, where the intelligence of life is out there, interconnected. It's connected, of course, within to you as well. So this is sort of bizarre that because people can't find intelligent advice, they follow cults and dimwits and deluded people giving out all sorts of bizarre things, and it takes them miles away from where they really want to go, which is an enjoyable, happy, uplifted life with some great powers and modes of expression and exciting events and so on. So what we're going to do is give you very clear steps to follow, and never forget that the best investment in yourself is in understanding your mind, all its levels, and raising yourself to another more potent, powerful, creative level. If things aren't working in your life, it's because the elevator has stopped. You got to press start again at a higher floor, and then it will go up. Okay, that's what you've got to do. You personally have to make some sort of actions in order for it to happen, but as soon as you allow it, as soon as you have that aim and goal that you're going for, then what happens? The superconscious comes in, rushes in to help you. Okay? That's just the way life works. And you can see that in the healing force. Look how quickly the healing force is there immediately. If anything happens to you, it's working, 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 working. Well, the healing force is the front nose of the superconscious, so to speak. And when you raise your level, when you go up another floor in the elevator of life, so to speak, this will enhance your material life as well. It'll improve your relationships. It will allow you to have an interesting career and a great lifestyle. That would be pretty good, wouldn't it? Those 4 things there. But it does require actions. It's not something that's going to turn up, you know, in your letterbox, the big check. And so a lot of people think that. A lot of people are very deluded. They've been taught by fools or, you know, crooks. That's the other thing that, you know, just imagine that kind of thing and it'll come along to you. It's not going to happen like that, okay? It's not going to happen like that. It definitely requires actions, not dramatic sort of horrific actions, just sensible, goal-aimed desires. And you say, well, I am a creative part of life. I'm a throb of life. I better start throbbing if I want to get things. Boom, 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 like the heartbeat. You want to do something, and let's see now what are the steps for it. So think about this. The greatest opportunity you will ever have is to be able to take your life to the next level. What does that mean? It means reinventing yourself or some of your life circumstances. So you're uplifting, you're improving, you're extending, you're reaching out, you're expressing yourself. That is what life likes. Why? Because it means you are growing. And what happens in life? You either grow or you stagnate and die. Those are the only 2 options. There's no middle ground. You're either growing or you're stagnating. Just check plant life and you'll see that to be the case. So reinvent yourself, and what will happen for you is that you will find you've entered into a new realm of experience, and new things in the mind or in the brain, if you like, will start to spark and fire, and you realize something new has opened up for you. You don't have to do anything much yourself in a sense of enormous effort. You take the commitment, you know the path you want to travel, but anybody can do it. They can start straight away. So why wait? The clock won't wait for you. And the superconscious is standing there behind you at all times. It's waiting like a private army of brilliant, educated people, as if you had a whole crowd of people to help you, to uplift you. That's what the superconscious is like. It's there. It wants you to grow. Why? Because growth is the only thing that's going on in this universe. You're growing or you're dying. You're on the way out. So if you're alive, you're growing. And if you grow yourself, you will open up faculties in your mind you did not know you had. This is very, very important indeed. And you can grow yourself in regard to your relationships, to your wealth creation abilities, your creativity, your career advancement, your health, your fitness, or anything else in your life. You don't have to do something esoteric and sit on the top of a mountain or in some desert cave. No, you get on with your life, your everyday life. Do it in the world. Much more sensible thing to do. And realizing this is the key to true freedom, because gaining those ordinary advantages of life is just the first step. There's something far, far greater that you can experience, but really you want to get the ordinary life in order. Always do that first of all. It doesn't have to be fascinating, it can just be interesting, or it can just be fulfilling in some way, mild way. You don't have to try and make the world, some sort of marvelous thing where you're the star and everything's happening perfectly. No, leave that aside. Just have the ordinary advantages of life. That's very, very important. And the first thing you need to do in order to get that to happen is to take back the power of your life to yourself. Now, you gave away your power during your childhood when you were small, physically small. You had to do what you were told by the adults, and this formed a habit that few ever recover from, because the mind will become molded and it will stay like that for the rest of your life unless you consciously enter into a personal development path. Okay? So one such path, I'm going to give you some very straightforward steps in a moment, but first, one such path requires a necessity of looking to your inner world for solutions. Don't make the mistake of 95% of the population and think that the solutions are going to come from outside you. The outside is a reflection of the inside. That's it. And as you do this work, it's quite extraordinary what you see. So we are all running on automatic, the automatic patterns of the mind. And this is the trance state that people live in, going through their lives without much consciousness at all, like the Matrix films. People are zombies almost, going through life. Now they've got the earphones and the screens as well, so they don't actually have to come out of their heads at all. They're just like that. A very big mistake to stay on those all the time. It's fine sometimes, obviously, but you don't want to make it your life path to stare at a screen and have headphones on, quite obviously. So what you need to do, first of all, is to stop and think, what patterns are you running in your life, and how do you propose to change them? Now, this is crucially important. You either live a life of old loops, things going round and round, and you might feel that yourself. You might feel, I want to break out, I want to do something. Everything seems the same. It's Groundhog Day, that great film, Groundhog Day. What patterns are you running to create your own Groundhog Day? Take a few minutes once we finish this session and write down your patterns. If you can identify your patterns, that's going to be a great help to you to see what you actually have to do. Because the patterns won't change themselves, just like a car cannot change its own tires. Okay? Your mind is within you. You only have to use it very consciously, and your life will respond. You don't have to develop some external knowledge or tools or get the right people to meet, or none of that's necessary. Just work with what you've got. Start to work in that way. Now, this is how you were born. Okay, you've been covered up, but this is the necessary thing. And it wasn't really meant to happen, but the education system, the culture, the social demands, the family life cause you to have many different locks and blocks and gates and restrictions and corks in the bottle and glass ceilings and all this stuff around your mind. It's just formed like that. It's a plasticine type of material. It can be molded, children's plasticine, you know, it can be molded into forms, and that's what your mind is. It's invisible. Unfortunately, you can't look at it and say, oh, I've got a dent there and a rip there. No, you can only experience it through what happens in your outside life. And there's no use just doing the outside life. I keep emphasizing that, I know, but that's so important for you to realize. You are projecting, you are projecting, you are projecting, and you can start to see these patterns, but you need to get the separation, the growth, the consciousness, and so on to do that. And your mind will retain its shape that was set by the time, certainly by 21, it gets set, and most people live that the rest of their lives until they deliberately want to change it. Okay? So the most brilliant and successful people have discovered the following. The only thing between you and getting what you want and creating the life you would rather live are the contractions in your nervous system. Okay? That's it. That's all. Everything else is working fine underneath that. But those contractions are what holds the shape of your mind and the shape that it is and projects that shape into your life, and that becomes your life experience. So it's contractions or tightness or holding on, call it what you will, of your nervous system. The contractions will not disappear automatically. They've been embedded powerfully inside you during your upbringing. They won't disappear just because you sleep or take some pills and potions, anything like that. They won't, of course, stop any limitations going. They can't. If you have a limitation of lack of confidence or inability to make money or have a great relationship, any of those things that are a result of the mind being there. And what are they exactly? What are these contractions? They are instructions put into your head, into your thinking mind, over and over again, but not verbally only, mainly verbally, quite obviously, but also a glance, a look, an emotion, a feeling, these kinds of things, body language, and impressions going in. You look at someone, Uncle Joe, Auntie Flo comes around, they have their atmosphere. See, the mind is precision perfect to pick up everything, every single thing. So what you need to know is, what are these impressions that have gone in? Make a note at this point, or when we finished, who were those people and who influenced you, and the ones that you believed when they spoke to you. So obviously, you know, the parents are in there, but anybody in authority or had a position of authority or seemed to know what they were talking about, that kind of thing. Even somebody only 2 years older than you, when your young mind is there, you go, oh, I believe that. You have been filled up massively with probably trillions of impressions, if the truth be known, that have made you what you are today. And if you can start to identify who these people are who put the impressions in, then what will happen is that you can start to free them. But up until that point, these are the instructions, which I just mentioned, which your mind hears and checks your actions and behaviors against. And it is these that hold you back from wealth and happiness, creativity, and great relationship. It's those instructions that are holding on by the interior contraction of the nervous system. You're usually unaware of them because they sit below the surface of your conscious mind. They're sort of the surface of the subconscious. You don't know they're in there. You think it's you. You believe that it's you. And if anybody points things out to you that are wrong, you get very cross, and how dare they speak to me like that and make those remarks, how rude they are, whatever it is. And that is the problem, that you have built these defenses These things are basically defending you against the superconscious, unfortunately, and they need to be let go of, and you need to transcend them, and you need to release your power because they act as a handbrake on everything in your life. And you might have tried every technique that you can, but more often than not, these will not work because the fundamental drives and dialogue that these limitations run through you are things like these thoughts. And these are the superior controlling thoughts that are very hard to shift. For instance, I'll just give you 4 of them. I am small and therefore insignificant. Now, you were small. People treated you in a way that made you insignificant. That went on for 10 or 20 years of your life till your brain fully grew. Now, when something happens, and it's not just they once said to you, you are small and insignificant, and then a month later they said something else. It is 24/7 when you're awake, obviously, that these impressions go in. So you probably have, and you will find this when you meditate regularly, when you look within, when you work on your system, when you become more conscious, you will see these things coming up. They will shock you and amaze you, as they do for us all. But we naturally draw conclusions based on the reality that we are facing. The second one is, these are the most common, I have no power. Now, you think about that. Of course you had no power as a child, unless you had a little bit of creative power or you were allowed to play or express yourself in some way, but basically, who held the power in your life? Your parents, the teachers, the older siblings, the relatives, the neighbors, whoever it was that was an adult around you. So that is a normal conclusion to draw. I have no power. Now imagine that, running through your head subconsciously all through your life. Are you going to take a stretch out there into life to get something better? No, obviously not. You're small and you have no power. You see, have these things. There's another one. I can't reach out and take from the smorgasbord of life what I want. Because when you did reach out to get something, you were often told off. Look at the number of children who are told off in supermarkets. Don't touch that. You can't have that. Or the mall. The mothers or fathers are under stress. They're rushing, and the little baby is pulling me. No, you can't have that. It just goes on and on. And you can't reach out. You go to your little school, and you want to be in the football team, and they don't want you for any reason. You're too small, or you don't look like you know what you're doing, or whatever it is. That comes out. And all these culminate in the ultimate statement and suggestion. I am not a great being. Okay? That's what's inside most people. How do we know this to be true? Because very, very few behave like a great being, or live like a great being, or contribute like a great being, or create like a great being. So we know that to be the case. Now, if you have those 4, and there can be other ones, if you have any of these, write them down, make a note of them. If they resonate with you, when I've just been speaking about them, make a note of them. Because you can see, if you had a computer program like that, I am small, I have no power, I can't take what I want from the smorgasbord of life, I'm not a great being, what could it do? Very, very little, you see, very little. So we're the same. And this is the normal experience of most human beings, or variations on those themes. But the truth of it is that all of us have a powerhouse inside that's caged in by these ridiculous and irrational beliefs, instructions, and emotions. Fortunately, there is something, in fact, the only thing that will and can remove all of those old statements, instructions from you. And this has been used for thousands of years in the ancient traditions. And of course, it is your own higher intelligence, the superconscious itself that we spoke of earlier. You need something more powerful than the contractions to squirt more energy and power through, so to speak, to free yourself of them. And you'll need to deliberately, with full commitment, turn your attention to this highest part of your nature. And this is the secret power, the magic elixir that all the alchemists and magicians have sought over thousands of years. It's not the golden fleece or something, the lost ark or whatever it is. What it is the super conscious. And many people try all sorts of self-development techniques, therapeutic activities, extreme body training, intense and even harmful practices of long-term confrontational activities, and many more, even bizarre and demanding things, but to no avail. I've watched these things over many, many decades to see people trying them, and I've known the teachers of them as well, and they're all deteriorating. They don't have the secret. They don't know what it is. They're just not told. So if you turn your attention to your own superconscious and you make that your primary activity, then you will discover that you have within yourself already everything that you need to create the life you want. And when you do that, when you taste this, because if you turn to it, it will respond, usually very, very quickly and in a big way for your present existence, the present circumstances. And what will happen is when you realize you have this incredible genius living with you, the genius of life itself, you will find not only relief, but the arising of courage, replacing contraction. And you will feel confident enough to step up to the stage of life and express whatever it is that you want to. So this superconscious can do anything. It creates all the coincidences you have. Have you ever thought about that before? How is a coincidence actually created? What is the possible intelligence that can arrange something such as you think of someone as you're walking along the street, you haven't seen them for a decade, 5 minutes later, you walk around the corner and there they are. Now, what is that? How does that happen? Do you have a sort of, intelligence within you that's picking things up and knowing the future and all that? Well, if there is, that's the same. Obviously, quite frankly, that's exactly the same thing. So what is important is that you need to actually work with that superconscious as much as you can and realize that something is running the universe. It's keeping you alive. It's keeping everything alive. It's keeping the planets, floating as they do, and so on, because there are so many imponderables that could block that person you haven't seen for 10 years coming. You could cross the road, or you could be on the phone, or you could be looking in a shop window. There's 1,000 million things that could happen to miss them, but somehow or other, you happen to be looking in that direction just when you see them. The crowd's part or whatever it is, there is some higher intelligence in play. If you can't realize that, you need to really concentrate on how life works a bit more, because there is definitely a higher intelligence in play. We don't know what it is, but we know it's there because you can call on it. You can make it come to you and deliver what it is that you actually want. So this is what you need to realize, is do not waste your time trying to take the burden of improving your life on only your own shoulders. Yes, be responsible, but be responsible for accessing the superconscious. Then all things are possible. You'll be shocked. I deal with people every day of the week, helping them grow themselves, all the courses and everything that I do, the one-to-one trainings, all those things. People have staggering results, amazing results when they commit themselves to that growth. That's how it works. You go through the blocks, the walls, and so on. So it's your ability to reform your mind stuff, to mold it into a form that the superconscious can come into your life more and more. You need to think about it, study it. Just by keeping it in your mind will help you dramatically, because the plasticine of your mind must be warmed and softened through the correct practices, obviously, and expanded to let more of this higher intelligence in. You don't have to manufacture anything to become a great being. It's already inside you. It's just a matter of releasing it, of doing more and more things. And as you do more and more things, as you stick your neck out more and more, the superconscious comes in, brings things to you. It may not flood everything on day one, but it'll bring you enough. You can see that there is some intelligence helping you in life, even if it's only just to get by and live. But there is something there that steps forward. So the most crucial secret for a successful life is that the game you want to play is make the space available for the higher energies to awaken and arise within you, because only they can flush out the contractions that undermine your life. A lot of people do therapy, and there can be great things in therapy. Believe me, it's well worth doing if you've got serious problems. But what you must do is include the superconscious deliberately in your life. It will wash away negative emotions, lack of energy, lack of confidence, sense of inadequacy and limitation, whatever it is. It will clear out the subconscious material. It is the highest part of your nature. And you can do anything else you like, but don't forget the superconscious, because only it can go under the subconscious and get into the nervous system, the spinal cord, the limbic system, and loosen and free up those contractions that have gone in you and basically restricted your life. So this is the higher self. The superconscious is the higher self. Get to know it more and more. It is who and what you truly are. And the surface personal mind, the intellect, the imagination, the monkey chatter of thoughts, it wants to keep your attention in its grasp. Watch out for that, because the intellect craves information, but if you succumb to it, it will block your true self. And that's where most people are. Most intelligent people are caught in the intellect. They can't jump across that barrier, so to speak, to experience the true self. It's internal. You don't have to look outside yourself. It's there. And your imagination craves stories and adventures. So that will keep you away from it as well. You'll never know the self if you stay completely in the imagination. That's why the screens are a bit dangerous for that reason as well. So what you want to do is to allow and encourage the superconscious to enter and fill your being. How? Once again, by having an aim, by having a goal, something simple if you want, something clear and easy. Then do the practices where you soften and open up the plasticine of your mind. You invite in to your interior space the energies of the superconscious, and the more attention you turn to it, the more powerful and attractive it becomes. And you will then be on the path to be living in a state of grace all through your life. That's the real goal. And what is a state of grace? It's a spiritual term, but grace means energy. So you will be one of those beings you see with divine eyes, heart awakened, filled with joy, centered, calm, focused, who can do all sorts of bizarre and extraordinary things. So the solution is very clear. Literally vibrate and deeply let go of the contractions, so relaxing the grip it has over your nervous system. Chanting is the best way to do that. Looking within your own mind through meditation, becoming very conscious in everything that you do. We'll go through some specific techniques as we go into episode 2 and 3 of this. But you must start doing it. You must start intellectually allowing yourself to have this kind of thing there. You want to become a true life magician. The second thing is learn to enter into the deep mind space. Normally when you go within, you fall asleep. But what you want to do is turn your attention to the mind itself. In fact, you can pay attention to attention. This is a very, very good saying. So you have your attention, your awareness, there it is. You're attentive. If you have your eyes closed, you're attentive to your inner world. Now, try holding your attention on your attention. Sounds a bit strange. It will come to you quite easily once you try it a few times. That is a very, very useful thing to do, and it turns your mind into a very powerful instrument. And the third and perhaps most important thing is you need more strength in your mind. It's a weak mind that is your biggest problem. It's not what happens when the mind is weak. People get stressed, they get unhappy, they get over emotional, they get hyperactive, excitable, etc., etc., and that ruins their lives. So you need to strengthen the mind, and these have been known for thousands of years. Meditate, chant, do mind exercises, use your mind power to create your life. Okay, consciously couple it with the breath. I'll be teaching you all these as we go along. Build more consciousness, and so discover your true self. So the superconscious mind can do anything. The personal mind is a little tiny spark of it. It's always connected to it. You are always connected to the motherboard, if you like, of life. And you can do 100 times better than you're doing now. Literally 100 times better. You're only using 1% of your mind's power. If you focus on that really and get it, it is so exciting, it's so exhilarating. You literally enter into a miraculous life, literally miraculous, because things start to happen and you think, how on earth did it happen? I only thought that I wanted that, and now there it is. This is a constant experience, more and more, as you do this proper work, and life does a flip. And instead of having to try to make things happen, life delivers what you want to you regularly. And it is incredible. You no doubt know people who are sort of in the zone where they seem to have a guardian angel making their life a breeze. Well, that is a cause of the superconscious energies coming more and more into their experience. So this is the guarantee of success if you want. And in our next lesson, I'm going to show you what are the steps that you will go through. There are certain specific steps that you can check your progress, where you are. That'll tell you what they are and where they are. And that will be very, very interesting for you. So you can see, oh, well, this has happened to me now. That means I'm on this particular level and so on. This is what I need to do. This is what's coming. So it's all been worked out for you. And what I recommend is that you concentrate now on focusing on your natural state. Why live as an unnatural being? It's not very bright, you know. We all do it. I've certainly done it. And I wonder to myself, why aren't I just living as a natural being? Now, I do that, of course. That's my main focus. But what people think as a natural being is living in nature. That's not being a natural being. That might be for them. But being a natural being is living in the superconscious, living in the highest natural part of yourself. That's what a natural life actually is. And if you do this kind of program regularly, it's only minutes a day, you can experience bliss and unconditional happiness. That is what comes with mind strengthening and centeredness in the ways that I've been describing it, the opening for the superconscious. People have done it for millennia. Now you can join them. As you know, I come from a lineage of yogis, so to speak. Well, they are all yogis, but they might not be yoga like we know it today with all the exercises. They're the real thing that's come from the mountains and the Himalayas and all that sort of thing, where they've gone into these higher energetic states. So I come from that lineage. And what people find when they meditate, either with me or in the way that I suggest, is that they start to experience this energy awakening and arising within them. So that is what can happen. You are in the right place with the right lineage to be able to experience these kinds of things. Many people report this to me on a regular basis, and I know it to be true. It's nothing to do with me personally. It's just that I happen to have joined that lineage, and the resonations of the superconscious work through it. And I'm sure many people listening to this will know that from their own experience. I also always studying about the superconscious, understanding how life works, in other words, and it feeds me the most variety of unexpected things. It's quite extraordinary, and that's what you can do too. I used to be like every ordinary person with no knowledge of this stuff. I then found out, it was quite hard to find out, I can assure you it took a long time to find out fully because it came from a foreign country and all that sort of thing. But now I know, and I'm able to help anybody else who wants to do this.